It's the political brown kid, and I'm here. And I just sat through 3 hours and 10 minutes of, and if you all know what 3 hours and 10 minutes show I'm talking about, it was actually the Shannon Sharpe interview he did with Amanda Seals. Don't even ask nobody. I even looked at this one. I'm going to be honest with you because I really don't know that much about Amanda Seals. I mean, of course, I know her name. I've seen her name. I've seen. I did have some enlightening moments because I didn't really remember when she joined Floetry, and I didn't know that that was her because at that point in time, I guess once the original girl left Floetry, I just kind of got out of Floetry. And really, they just had the one first album that I was into, and then they just kind of faded away, you know. So that was just my one, like, oh, that was her. But outside of that, I really didn't know Amanda Seals. So I just kind of want to talk about the interview that she did with Shannon Sharpe and some of my takeaways on that. And of course, if y'all haven't seen the interview, there's going to be some spoilers here. I'm going to try to not spoil it too much, but there are going to be some spoilers here. But if you don't want to spoil it, I would highly recommend you go watch the full 3 hours and 10 minutes on Shannon Sharpe's platform, Club Shay Shay. I don't know how that brother came up with that name, but I mean, if that's what he wants to call himself, fine. But go check him out. Shannon's doing very well, and I'm proud of him. Happy for him as well. So now I'm going to dive into it. Like I said, turn it off if you don't want the spoilers. If you want to check out the interview first, and then that way you can kind of have your own opinions when you watch this. You can be like, well, political brown kid, you're wrong, or political brown kid, I agree with you. And you can kind of be more interactive here. So without further ado, let's talk about it. I'm going to start off with the things I did like. So, of course, spoiler alert, I'm not going to have too many good things to say about Amanda. And I'm not going to say about Amanda. Let me say that because I don't know her, but just about how she projects herself. So let me just put that out there. And let me start off, too, before I even dive into this by saying I can relate to Amanda Seals. I think that she's intelligent, but I think that there's things in her personality or in her character that are going to make her to not be well received. And I can honestly say that from a position of empathy because I think that I'm probably the male version of Amanda Seals. I think somebody we think we're smart, and we probably are smart, but then sometimes it's our mouth and our disposition sometimes that can turn people off, towards us. And so that's why I think Amanda may catch some of the flack that she catches. But so let me go back into the interview so I can say I think I can empathize with her on that front. So the thing that I did like, once again, I'm going to start off with, I think that she's intelligent. I think that she's an intelligent person. Not just because she has academic intelligence, but maybe her academic intelligence kind of shaped her intelligence overall. So I'll say that she's an intelligent person. She has some good thoughts, good aspirations, especially for the people. When I say the people, I'm talking about for us Black people throughout the diaspora. I like the fact that she's very conscious of that, conscious of community. So I like her for that. I also felt as though Shannon Sharpe kind of was in the wrong on when she was speaking about this one point. So it happens very early in the interview. I think about 20 minutes in, when she's talking about the teacher that she had to correct by stating about Aborigines being a prehistoric people or whatever, and then she corrected the teacher, and the teacher wanted to talk to her parent. And then Shannon Sharpe just kind of interjected and said, well, teachers, it wasn't racism. Teachers just don't like to be during that day. He was saying, back in the day, you just didn't correct adults as children. I can agree with Shannon on that one particular position because being 45 years of age and growing up during that kind of like that time, that was kind of the case. Kids were, especially, I shouldn't say especially, I keep telling y'all Black people love to say especially in the Black community because I was just about to say it, but I can relate. I know it happens for a fact in the Black community, so I'm going to phrase it that way. Because like I told y'all, growing up in my neighborhood, There were, like, when we were young, little kids did not knock on your front door. Like in my neighborhood, my friends could not knock on the front door. It's kind of like house Negroes, the slaves and regular people. The slaves had to use the back door, of course. Growing up, my parents' friends, the adults, knocked on the front door. All of my friends had to come to the side door. And when I went to their house, I could not knock on the front door, went to the side door. That's where the kids entered into. It was just certain things. Kids were supposed to be seen, not heard. When grown folks were talking, I know some grown people right now, they'll tell you, they get upset. They be like, man, we trying to have grown folks conversation and you keep bringing these little kids around. These kids are not supposed to be in our conversation, boom, boom, boom. They take high offense to that. So I kind of understand where Shannon is coming from in that front. But at the same time, I understand where Amanda's coming from, that just because that's the way it was doesn't mean that teacher is right. And maybe Shannon wasn't saying she's right or wrong. Maybe he's just providing clarification, because I think he took offense that she was basically saying that the teacher was a racist. And I'll agree with Shannon too on that other position, that she can't just deduce or surmise that a teacher is racist just because they're in Florida and that they were incorrect and they're correcting her. But once again, I do think that, Shannon just tried to provide that clarifying point, and that's kind of where the interview immediately went left. Once he basically stated and gave her pushback on that, you could see her disposition. She was in her feelings throughout the remainder of the interview. And I'm going to come back to that point. And I probably should have mentioned that after this one, but I'm going to mention this next point, and I'm going to come back to her disposition. I also agree with her on the colorism thing. Definitely when she was saying that colorism works one way and then it's bullying or possibly bullying, when basically she's saying that dark-skinned blacks cannot be colorist. Only light-skinned blacks can be colorist. That's basically what she's saying. And she gave a few examples of basically stating that, when she talks in terms of being light-skinned, people perceive it as her being elitist or looking at being light-skinned in a positive manner. And, so therefore a lot of times that's where the colorism, and then she kind of went into certain things about colorism, but she didn't stay in that realm too long. But I definitely agree with her on that. And as y'all know, if you've been watching my channel long enough, I keep telling y'all, matter of fact, I was planning on doing a video on colorism, which I'm still going to do, but I just so happen to have 3 hours and 10 minutes available today because I was riding around in my car and I had it. So I was listening to her interview. And so I listened to it and she brought up colorism. But I keep telling y'all that there's going to be a Rwanda genocide 2.0 that's going to happen somewhere else in the diaspora, whether that's America, whether it's Europe, whether it's some other place. But there's going to be a Rwanda 2.0, a Rwandan genocide 2.0, a Hutu Tutsi type of conflict that's going to go on between light-skinned blacks and dark-skinned blacks, and especially because light-skinned or quote unquote mixed. I'm not talking about all light-skinned. I'm just talking about specifically the ones that are mixed. They don't attribute themselves to being black, and they're really actually siding more so with white people. If you notice, look at all of the mixed blacks that you see out there. They are dating and passing and living in a white world. They don't marry or date black. I keep telling y'all that. So I agree with her on those two fronts. Now, getting back to Amanda Seales, I think one of her downsides, and she even did an post-interview after this, that I wanted to watch and tie into because I heard some things that she had said, and I just wanted to confirm it. So I had complete context coming into doing my assessment of her. When you looked at her disposition after Shannon kind of pushed back on her calling the teacher racist, she kind of took offense to that. Then also Shannon kind of challenged or questioned whether she had autism. And, that seemed to push a button with her as well. She basically stated that she's autistic, and Shannon said, you've been tested and she went on about the test and talking about how to get tested for autism is racially biased and all this other stuff. I was trying to figure out why how is the test racially biased, and then she said it's biased against black women. So I was like, I guess not against blacks, period. It's just really just against black women. Because I told you all black women have created their own race. They've separated themselves from black men. And Amanda Seales is definitely, from the interview I've seen, well, I kind of already knew about her a little bit. I knew she was a liberal, feminist, and now I'm going to put in a narcissist. And I hate to use that word. Trust me, I do. I hate that word narcissist because I've heard it so much in the past 4 years from every woman on planet Earth. But Amanda Seales kind of falls into that category. But so she basically said that she is autistic. And then she did say that she was tested, but then she just did an interview. Well, she was doing I guess she made a little video. I don't know where she posted it up on what social media platform. But then she said she wasn't tested because she doesn't want to pay the $10,000 to get tested. So I'm kind of like, well, make your mind up. I mean, you just told Shannon that you were tested, and then you're mad at Shannon for kind of questioning whether you were tested for autism or not. And then she went on her platform outside of the Shannon Sharpe platform. So now I'm talking outside of the Shannon Sharpe platform. I'm talking about these post interviews that I've been seeing with her. She went on the platform and basically said that as a man, he was, and then she wants to play the feminist card and plays the, once again, it's just men beating up on women. As a man, he didn't, I guess do this or respect her, and he was challenging her on XYZ stuff. And so I thought Shannon did a very good job. Now, I will agree with her on one thing. I think that Shannon did, he did provide pushback to her on having autism, and he did kind of try to push back on whether the teacher was racist, but those were the only two times Shannon really gave her pushback. And so she's like, well, she was told that this was a safe space and she could come up and talk, and this was a safe space and she wouldn't be interrupted. She'd get her points across or whatever. And she's claiming that she wasn't allowed to get her points across. I thought she got her points across. Shannon did interrupt, like I said, a couple of times, but for the most part, he let her talk. And then during times when sometimes when Shannon did interrupt, it wasn't like he just blatantly interrupted her. They were talking and he kind of chimed in, and then he kind of tried to digress it a little bit because I guess he thought she was finished with her point, but then she would reel him back in and be like, well, look, I didn't finish my point on this, so let me go back to this topic. And she would go back and revisit to clean it up. And he allowed her plenty of time to freestyle and talk. But the one thing I will say is that I do think that there were times when, like, I've only seen a few Shannon Sharpe interviews. One was this Amanda Seales. The first one was I saw Godfrey. I do believe I saw Godfrey. I saw Cat Williams. Of course, everybody saw Cat Williams. And then I saw the Steve Stout one. When you see the Steve Stout one, there's nothing really to rebut. Steve and him are just talking, riding around through Queens, blah, blah, blah. Cat, he did give Cat some pushback. Not as much as he gave Amanda, but he did give Cat pushback. He didn't push back when Cat said he read 3,000 books at the age of 3 or whatever, which I thought was crazy absurd. But when Cat said I run a 4.240 or whatever, he said, oh, come on, Cat, come on. He did kind of go there, but he didn't challenge Cat enough like he did challenge Amanda. So I'll agree with her on that. He didn't push back to say, come on, Cat, is that documented really? Or come on, Cat, you read 3,000 books, seriously? Like, he didn't really kind of give that pushback. But I think that he doesn't really push back on stuff like that. I think Shannon is more so about, if you try to get into call them like white people racist, I think because of his platform and he's trying to appeal to the masses, I think that's where he's going to have those interjections. And I would like to see my theory proved correctly if like other people get on there and start talking about the man and what the white man done did and this, that, and the third. But I think those subjects that Kat were talking about were just they were purely like 440, who's, like, I guess that really has that much relevance in the world, But, when Amanda Seales is throwing around talking about a teacher as racist, I think that carries a lot more. That carries a lot more weight. Like, if you're calling somebody a racist, I could see somebody having a little bit more concern to say, well, wait a minute, are you really saying that this person's a racist? Was this person a racist really, or is this just how you feel? As opposed to somebody just getting on TV saying, oh, I run a 440, and by the way, too, I read 900,000 books. So I think that that's why he didn't really push back. But again, this is just my opinion. But I will agree he didn't push back on Kat like he pushed back on her. But he didn't, but he gave her very minimal pushback. She had enough rope where I think that she kind of did things to herself. And then in her post interview that I saw on her other platform, she was basically like, he was leading me to have negative conversations. I didn't really see that, not unless there was a great editing job. It seemed like the people that come on his platform do it to themselves. Country Wayne initiates beef with who did he initiate beef with? I forgot the person who I think is it Faison or Corey Holcomb. It seemed like people go on Shannon Sharpe's platform to initiate their own beefs, and he doesn't stop it. He just says, "Man, I know these people. Man, I got to deal with these people." And so she was the one that mentioned Emmanuel Acho. She was the one who mentioned Issa Rae. She was the one who mentioned Issa Rae's publicist or agent. She was the one who mentioned Marsha Ambrosius or whatever her name is from Flowetry. She was the one who mentioned all of these other people. So, you can't really blame somebody else for that. I don't know. I mean, and he was the one that he didn't ask, hey, well, tell me something negative about these people. He asked because he knew that she was in these groups or in these spaces. And so he was just asking particular questions. But once again, this is what happens when you're dealing with, unfortunately, this is why women want to know why men don't approach women anymore. This is a part of the reason why. She came onto a platform, and let me just say this before I talk about, before I bring this point up. After Shannon Sharpe had, correct, like I said, about 20 minutes, probably not even 20 minutes into the interview, 10, 15 minutes into the interview, once Shannon had corrected her about not corrected, but, he kind of pushed back on the idea that this teacher was racist and maybe just didn't want to be corrected by a child, her disposition changed. And throughout the interview, an hour later, an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, she kept mentioning, she just kept bringing it back to Shannon disagreeing with her. Because you disagreed with me on the teacher. She just kept she couldn't let it go that he had disagreed with her twice or had a disagreement with her. She even brought up the fact that she even told him, she said, I'm I'm educated. I have a degree in Black studies, and her degree is actually in hip hop. It's in African American studies and it's in hip hop. So my thing is, just because you have a degree in hip hop doesn't mean you understand the history or intricacies of racism. It doesn't make you any that much more knowledgeable of racism than myself or anyone else. And I'm not trying to say that she's not knowledgeable, but us being Black people, period, we have a connection because we're in the streets, right? We're on the ground level. We live. We don't need a survey or a poll or any kind of test subject done, test study done to tell us about what's going on, as far as race relations. We live it every day. So I'm not taking that away from her because she does have that Black experience. But, she just kept telling Shannon, she basically said to him, you ought to want to listen to me. You ought to want to just take the fact that I'm right because I have a degree in Black studies and I'm Black and I have these experiences. And because he doesn't want to just settle for that, and that's sometimes the Achilles heel of a lot of smart people. Smart people assume that just because they have they've been certified by some school and some school gave them a degree, that you are just that you're right and everyone else is wrong, that you're the authoritative source and everyone else is just a bunch of dingleberries that doesn't deserve an opinion in the matter. And that's where Amanda Seales is falling. She's When you have these book smarts and people have been telling you you're smart your whole life, trust me, I run into it on my job all the time. You work around a bunch of smart. I consider myself smart, and sometimes a lot of people tell me, "You think you know everything. You think you know everything," and I have to be consciously aware of sometimes to say, let me push back on talking a lot. Let me, kind of let other people talk or not minimize their experience. It's an Achilles heel sometimes of reading and knowing and just being well versed. Because she says she knows everything about everything. He asked her about fishing. She said, I've never been fishing, but I can tell you, I went scuba diving and I know all about fish and I know everything about everything. I study everything and I know a lot about everything. So then you know about fishing, you know about fish, you know this, you know that. And so it just becomes a bit much sometimes. And sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. Now, what I'm saying is that the one thing I like about her is when I was just looking at an interview offline, she acknowledged, she said, I just saw something that she did. She just posted it online. And she was basically like, after watching the interview of myself, I can see why people don't like me. And at least she can acknowledge that and say, I'm looking at this and, I understand how people, have a negative perception of me. And then she said, but the thing that I really like that she said about that, and it's not that she just said that, but she said, but the things that I could change, I'm not willing to change. And I can respect that. I think that that's true gangster because sometimes, there are situations where people just want to be liked. And then sometimes you just have to stand on principle. You have to say that, look, I'm not for everybody. My personality type, it's not going to attract a lot of people. I'm going to have a very small circle of friends, but the friends that I'm going to have are going to be good quality friends because the type of personality that I have, it takes a special joker to fall into my camp. And that's what I appreciate about her is that she's like, I'm not willing to change on it. And there may be some things that I personally may think that, hey, she should change. But you know what? If she's in that conviction that there are certain things about her personality that she should not change, then so be it. The whole world doesn't have to like you. You can't please the whole world. So I do appreciate that. One thing stood out to me too in this interview, and this kind of goes, I'm tying this back into dating. I'm going to tie this into the dating world. I swear I am. So all roads lead back to dating with me, right? She mentioned too that, once again, here we're talking about Amanda Seals. Now, maybe Amanda doesn't, maybe she's not rolling in dough like I think that she is. I didn't realize she started as a child actress in Hollywood. But here's a person that's been in Hollywood since she's been a child. Um, maybe I'm thinking she's swimming in a lot of dough, or maybe she's not. But she mentioned like her boy. She was like one time when a show got canceled, when her tour got canceled, the money stopped flowing in, and she was just like, yeah. And I was basically, I think she was living with the guy. She made it seem like they were living together. He would seem like he was living off of her, because she said he didn't have a job, he didn't have any money, and if I wasn't able to make money, we weren't gonna have money coming in. And then she mentioned that, so basically she's dating a guy, don't have a job, doesn't have anything going on for himself. Then she mentioned another time too, she said, I paid probation. I've visited POs, parole officers. I paid for probation or for bail money or put up for something. So basically then you dating jokers that have cases, you dating jokers that do this, that, and the third. And once again, you're talking about a woman with a PhD, or I shouldn't say a PhD, but you're talking about an educated woman. She's saying she's so educated, a woman with a great profession who has this, that, and the third, academically, career wise, going for themselves. And they just can't stay away from these gangsters. They just can't, there's something about these gangsters that they just love. And so you can't say that she hasn't had an opportunity to deal with or be surrounded by successful men. I'm pretty sure she has access more so than a lot of other women to be with successful men. But she chose what she chose. And I can't make this stuff up. I honestly cannot make this stuff up. The other point too that just kind of caught me in this interview was she started talking about how she got in trouble on a set. I don't know if she got pulled up by human resources or by a director or by somebody on the set for calling a black male the N word. And so, and I noticed throughout the interview, as she's sitting on Shannon Sharpe's couch, she uses the N word routinely. It's a part of her lexicon, right? So she is just, she uses the word like it's like she uses the word sir and ma'am, and so forth. She basically told a story about, I guess, some guy that she was working with on set. And I guess I don't know if this was on the show Insecure or if it was on another set. But she was basically like, this guy has tattoos. And I guess he's popping gummies all day on the set. He's from Detroit. And so she's like, we were in his trailer and he had a poster up, I think of Malcolm X. He had some kind of poster up. And she was like, oh, so you a revolutionary N-word. And so he was like, I'm not an N-word. And so then I guess he went and told somebody, and then they pulled her up to say, hey, look, you can't call him that. That's, basically correcting her and letting her know that that was disrespectful. And so she's basically like, really? This dude literally has tattoos, popping gummies all day, and we literally use the N-word on the show. And he's not an N-word. So here's where I'm going to say this. And I keep telling black people, y'all have to get away from using the N-word. I do too, because there's sometimes when I slip up and I'll use the N-word. It's not right. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. We have to get away from using the N-word. And I don't know why black people want to hold on to it like it's some sacred word. If I was on a set, and I'm going to reverse the roles here for you all to consume and just kind of follow me on this. I'm going to provide you with a scenario. I'm hired on a black show with a black female director, a black female executive. There are a bunch of black females on this show. We're all using, in the script calls for me to call women the B word. And so, or the script, they're throwing around the B word. It's all literally peppered throughout the script that we're reading. And then they say, cut, I go back to my trailer, you go back to yours, and I go into Amanda Seal's trailer, and I say, yeah, you a bad B. And she takes offense to that. And she goes and tells the director, and they come and pull me up, and they say, you can't call that woman a B. And I said, well, she dresses a certain way, and we use the B word in the movie a lot. So I'm just trying to figure, and she's from Florida, and she claims New York as her hometown. So, I mean, why not? That's the same logic. A script is a script. Once you stop acting, the cameras, you're back in the real world. That's similar to being on the set of Django in, who's the guy from Don, what's his name? I forget his name, but he played in Miami Vice, but he was in Django. And also Leonardo DiCaprio was in Django. Both of those two white men, the one from Miami Vice and Leonardo DiCaprio, they both used the N-word heavily in that movie. Once the cameras are off, that doesn't give you the right to just walk into my trailer and be like, what's up, my N-word? No, it doesn't. If somebody gets into a fight, then you'll know why. So I'm just trying to figure out why an educated woman such as herself, who proclaims to be an authority on Black history and Black studies throughout the diaspora, because she's created a whole degree around it and she's lived the experience, why she would even think that it's right to use the N-word. I don't understand that. So this has just been my assessment of, the Amanda Seals 3 hours and 10-minute interview. It seems like they're getting longer and longer, Shannon. Bro, you got to reel them in. I sat through it. I thought it was good. I have a better understanding of how she turns people off. Because like I said, after she did the interview, she totally turned on Shannon. She totally turned on Shannon. Matter of fact, during the beginning, what people probably fail to miss is this. Shannon, I think, asked her for a hug. Now, I don't know if this was on camera or off camera. I can't recall. But he had asked her for a hug, and she basically told him no. She said, I don't do hugs. You have to work up to that. And so at the end, probably about maybe 2 hours and 50 something minutes or 2 hours and 40 minutes into this thing, then she says, because her and Shannon, I guess they kind of agreed on one similar point. And, so she holds up a drink and toasts Shannon, and they toast one another. And then she says, I'll give you that hug now. And then he was just like, oh, I thought you didn't do hugs or whatever. And then she was just like, well, you got to build up to it. So, I guess the hug is on her time. Once again, we let women dictate all situations. Once again, so Shannon didn't. So obviously he must have been that much of a gentleman. He asked for a hug. Number one, he asked, could he hug her, touch her body? She said no. He respected that. And later she said, okay, you can give me a hug now. And then they hugged, and then they went back to sitting down. But then as soon as the show was over, now she's online just trashing Shannon like he just did her though. Like he was just this mean man. I'm telling you, boy, it is rough. A lot of people are just turned off by liberal feminists. I'm telling you, liberal feminists, they are just something special. Something special. But, oh well, that's just my personal opinion. Don't take my word for it. But it's hard. I mean, it's just hard navigating women that are just hyper liberal, hyper feminist, and then you throw in Amanda Seales' personality of just being right, being smart, being everything to everyone, and it's rough. But that was just my assessment of what I saw. I'd definitely like to know y'all's assessment. Drop your comments in the comment section. Hit the like and subscribe button. Once again, this is the Political Brown Kid. I'm out of here.